Have you ever wondered what the Microstakes nightmare could look like? Well, in today's video, I'm going to look at my bankroll challenge, day number 19. To say the least, it has not gone that well. These are the last 500k hands that I played on PokerStars, and they're all across different limits. And about 150,000 hands were played on Microstakes, and then mostly PLO 100 and around those limits, which I consider mid stakes. Now you can see that there were a couple of swings here, and some of them were over here and over here. But the thing is, these were on mid stakes. Now recently, when I played the Bankroll challenge, you can see the drop here in red and down here, and that was at Microstakes, and it felt many more times as brutal, also knowing that I have a large win rate at the micros, and that it actually was still possible to lose at this speed in an individual 12-hour session. But let's have a look at it in details. This is how the individual session looked like. Not all that bad, right? You might think. But if you have a closer look at it, there was an insane upswing the first 1,000 hands or so, where I just won 11 or 12 buy-ins. Haven't run like that for quite a while. Also said on stream that this is a godlike run when I started the stream on day number 19 from the challenge. And then from then on, the next 4,000 hands were a complete nightmare to me. And, I just said I'm going to do a bankroll challenge. I'm going to go through with it, right? Even if things go really terrible. But I have to say that I really couldn't take it well. And I was cursing like all the time, and probably have been more toxic than almost ever before on stream. And the reason behind it is really that I have a large winner at these stakes, and basically the money never went in good, except for like maybe one exception at hand number 1,600 and something here. Until down here where I lost in the process like 15 buy-ins in EV, which by the way is much worse than if you just lose 15 buy-ins. I can completely get that you can drop, you can just run 20, 30, 40 buy-ins below EV, and it's just what it is. And this reality I can much easier accept. But when I'm gonna have an EV bottom 1% session, I would call it, then things get annoying over time. As human beings, we have just a willpower that is exhaustible. So if we just have to take something again and again for like 11 hours straight or 8 hours straight, like here, at some point I just had enough. And I obviously was still trying to get in the volume because it's necessary to make this bankroll challenge happen. But I definitely had enough. It was no longer fun anymore at all. And, it was just pissing the shit out of me. I mean, it's like, what the fuck was happening? And you can see really that I was basically never getting in the money good, except for some exceptions. But let's have a look at the concrete hands and how that could look like. So let's just quickly move through the hands and see, how we can lose such a high amount of buy-ins in a short time. And here we got top set, bet, and now check on the turn as the straight gets there. He bets about half pot. We go check call. We have one, unfortunately, a full house blocker that works a little bit against me, but obviously we get a great price. And on the river, check fold. This was a pattern throughout the whole session, just getting to the river and having to fold, but it is just what it is. And that was happening a lot here. This is actually the hand that ended that stretch where I 4-bet, went bet, jam on the river, and he called me with deuce, check 6, which he min 3-bet called 4-bet with, and I win over 700 big blinds in just one hand and still did not book a winning session, or at least in EV, which seems pretty ridiculous. Here, ace check 10-5, we'll go 4-way to the flop or so, a 3-way, 4-way actually, and with flop really great. This guy actually ends up bet folding the flop for about half pot, which is great because we get it in against 3s and 8s and have him completely crushed and win another large pot. But then from here on, the next few hands are not that funny. Have a guess how much equity we have here. Have a guess. Pause the video if you need to. Like, what's the lowest it can get? I guess technically, yeah, this is gonna be the lowest, but I'm going to show you the cards here. And yes, it's 5%, you guessed right. Probably not. I mean, we have ace-7 here. I don't see any way how we could have gotten out of this hand except for maybe pre-flop because of not having a suited ace. But looking at the stats and everything and being still somewhat deep stack with this player, and having the check 10-7 triplet, which is not the worst. Also ace check 10. The cards just still work well together, even though I just have a 10 high suit. And I thought calling was a little bit better than folding. On the flop though, no way to get away. And then miraculously, I end up chopping it with this guy who just has exactly the same hand, just that he has aces instead of ace check 10-7, which is, and then this guy has an underfull, which, you know, I guess happens once in 100k hands, but that was, you know, that was probably the hand that was definitely too much. I was so mad, and even though that other guy came on stream and said that he was mad that he lost the hand, I said, look, you just cooler the shit out of me, whatever, you know, and was a bit unfriendly there. So here, another run good hand where somebody just calls down with a 7 high flush, even though we were multi-way on the flop, easy money. As you can see, this happens occasionally. And when you have an average session, this happens actually quite a lot, that people just make really bad call downs. Here ended up going 3-way to the flop, where I check called an under straight against the bet, and then went for the check raise all line, having him completely drawing that because he has 10s in a flush draw, which is a lot of run good as well. So it's like the third hand that I just wanted to also pick the run good hand, so I'm not like too biased towards just bad beats for you guys to see the entire session, and also the run good that happened at first. Now here, I think it's a clear 4-bet, seeing 64-40, 16 sets on like 50 hands. I think it's just a little bit too wild of a player to not 4-bet here. Unfortunately, run into aces for 80 big blinds. I'm completely fine with the play though. And this is nothing to do with the red line, but just with the session. Here, I have to call the 4-bet. I have ace check 8-7 double suited. We go 3-way to the flop, and I flop 0 equity again, or 9% here, but obviously cannot call. And this has been also a little bit of pattern at 3-bet and 4-bet pots. Just, you know, I ended up folding in those. I did 3-bet here with a quite nice double suited hand that I want to have as one of my bluff 3-bets, and end up betting, and then on the river it went check check, and you know, he wins the whole 120 big blinds too. Aces double suited, ended up betting a turn. I didn't think I was gonna get check raise all that often. Also, a block an 8 or 10 is very important to me, that I have at least a gut shot. Otherwise I would check behind. I did get punished a little bit here. I called, and then on the river again I have to fold. A lot of these hands happening. Calling, flop turn, either street, or like a check raise on either street, and then folding later streets. Definitely debatable there if somebody is aggressive enough, which I didn't think it was going to happen. As played though, you have to call the check raise still, obviously, and I just whiffed the river. Here, ended up bluffing one hand here, also not so cool. I don't think I have enough showdown value here on average, and I want to at least put some ace-3 type of hands in a tough spot, and he ends up calling here only with a full house. We both shouldn't have that many full houses on this texture exactly. On the button, I definitely could have some more 9s than on other positions, because I'm going to raise a little bit of wider range. I'm going to have also some ace, queen, 9-3 single suited type of hands potentially. Same for him, obviously, yeah, ends up going wrong here. Here again, a 3-bet pot, 3-way, flop 3% of equity against this shorter stack. Not so much fun. And ace jack jack 4, call, fold river. And we got jacks where we also put money in on the flop, on the turn per check call, and on the river again fold. And here, again, a hand where I peeled and then had to fold the river. It's just like something like that was happening quite a bit. And after the session, it's just not the hands alone. What I really recognize is that it's the insane rake. You can see that the yellow line basically illustrates you how the session would have gone in green line if there was no rake. Now, if you calculate 6,500 hands through, like let's say 10 binds difference in rake, that's about 15 or 16 big blinds per 100. That rake is completely insane. I mean, it's just that these days, you know, without any rake back in play, Microstakes in PLO was always difficult because of rake, but you know, just seeing that it's actually much worse than a PLO 2 cent 5 cent and 1 cent 2 cent, and also the way people are playing, like people basically 3-bet and 4-bet and never fold to those bets, and it's just an equity game, right? Where you just go into the flop with a low SPR and you just get the money, and swings are gonna get real and the rake is gonna be insanely high. And I have to say, this is something you obviously cannot change, but the rake is definitely too high. If PokerStars increase the rake by another 20%, they will make the game complete gambling and unbeatable. I think 20 or 30%, like a 20% maybe 0.5% of the players would still win, and at 30% more big blinds per 100 lost, nobody would win anymore, even probably maybe the best in the world. But you know, rake can at this point can definitely have no more increase, otherwise this game is completely done when it comes to a skill game. Now, I think at this point, as I said, it's still easily possible to make 10 big blinds per 100, maybe 15 big blinds per 100. Maybe on PLO 10, I don't know about the 15 big blinds per 100. You have to game select a little bit because, yeah, rake is insanely high. 16 big blinds per 100, it just cuts down so much of your edge, especially because you're playing low SPRs where you just cannot maximize your edge anymore. I think the way where you get a lot of edge is when you play the flop, you play the turn, you play the river, which just doesn't happen a lot on Microstakes anymore. You just have to get the equity part of the game figured out and just play those pots reasonably well, and then you're going to be fine. But the way that edge also at the mid stakes and the high stakes gets created is by playing multiple streets, flop, turns, and river, and obviously pre-flop has an influence as well, and just exploit people on rivers. I think the people who win at 10 big blinds per 100 and PLO 500, what they do best is they just play rivers so damn great that, you know, they just exploit their opponents really well. They just make really good folds, make really thin value bets, and the river, the amount of river mistakes, or the size of the river mistakes is just so big that people will, you know, lose or win at those win rates, basically. All right, now you gotta listen. Microstakes, in my opinion, from my standpoint, is not where you want to make money in poker. You don't want to build money in microstakes poker. On microstakes poker, you play to get better. Sure, this bankroll challenge is all about showcasing that it's still possible to you know, build those bankrolls even in a too high raked environment like PLO cash. However, it's not where you want to make build your bankroll. You know, it is really just about figuring out how the game Pot Limit Omaha works. This is really important for later on because, you know, there are games in this world in Pot Limit Omaha where people play like they're on the microstakes. Maybe not all on your table, but some on your table they might have never played before. There's insanely soft games that you know, where people are playing for $10,000s, where obviously I'm not playing it, but I know I've seen those games, or some of the games at least. And you just want to be good at the game and then eventually get into those games and make the money then. But at first, you know, see the microstakes not as somewhere where you build bankrolls. This is, I think the dream hasn't completely died. I don't want to say that because it's wrong, but it's definitely not, doesn't make too much sense. It's just not the most logical thing for a human being to do if you think about it. I said it in other videos, if you want money, make money in a real job. Then, if you want to get better at poker, play microstakes to just understand how the equities run in PLO. What does it mean to play an SPR 1 pot against 2-3 fish? What does it mean to play an SPR 3.5 heads up when you 3-bet before the flop out of position? You know, all these situations you gotta figure out. But it doesn't make sense to make money and build those bankrolls, even though I'm doing it with this challenge. I'm well aware that I'm doing exactly what I think doesn't make too much sense, just because I want to prove that the dream's still alive if you want to be stubborn. My advice to you is just don't be stubborn, don't do it. See the microstakes as a learning opportunity. The sites, the PokerStars especially, doesn't give a fuck about you. You know, they don't care whether you win at poker. They don't care if anyone wins at poker. If they care about something, it's how to make the most money. I mean, it's just changed. The company has just shareholders where they want to make the most money. It's just business. And this is what they do. Even though, poker players will hate it, we don't do anything about it. Like people, they can go on strike for 1 to 3 days, but nobody cares. This is just, people are not going to care in the poker community, which is sad, but it is what it is. So don't try to count on any sites, especially in the future, especially poker stars, making it able for you to build bankrolls in formats like cash games. In tournaments, it's a bit different. I think there we're going to see a longer period where you can make more money. I think tournament poker has now, at least on the Microstakes, has overcome cash games as a much better format. I actually want to prove this also maybe in the future here on my channel, where I showcase that tournaments are just much better again at the micros up to a certain limit, where then it makes more sense to switch to cash games because of the rake being lower and because of you also still being able to obviously beat the opponents. I hope that you could take something away from this, ending thoughts, and that you stuck with me until now. If you got some value out of it, or if you have any questions, guys, just let me know in the comment section below. Don't forget also to hit the thumbs up because it helps my channel, and subscribe if you want to see more content coming up in the future. Thanks for watching.